Hello again, welcome to Different Beat. I'm Tim.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And today we're going to be talking to you about Resident Evil Revelations 2. This was all her. She wanted to play this game. I didn't know, but we went into it. So, Resident Evil Revelations 2. Beth, I'm going to let you start on this one. This is your love child.
Unlike many people, I don't think Resident Evil 4 was the end-all be-all. I mean, it's a good game, great game, but that's all it was. Like, the trailer for RE4 1.0 is still one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
I want that game.
And I say all this because I think it's important to lead up. I actually like RE5 more than RE4, just like I actually really love Chris Redfield as a character, and I like Leon and everything. So I'm kind of at odds with the fan base, and as Revelations 1 came out, I really enjoyed it. RE6, I didn't enjoy, despite having Chris, despite having Leon, and despite being hyped for it, I didn't like it.
No,
so going into Revelations 2, I was very mixed on, and as it came out with each weekly episode and watching the fan base react to it and how positive they were, because a lot of people are saying this is the best game in the franchise since RE4, I continued to get my hopes up thinking it was going to be good, and I ran face first into, while not as big of a disappointment as RE6, a huge disappointment. Revelations 2 to me is what a lot of people feel Resident Evil 5 was. Where this is a big drop in quality in 1 to me as far as character designs go for the enemies, locations, and the cast that's in the game. Having Parker, Jessica was stupid, and her high fashion wet gear was dumb. I agree. And the Conan character was awkward too.
Is that how they excuse that? They called it high fashion?
I don't know. Well, my point is, yes, those are dumb. But I will take every character that has the intelligence of a rock every day of the week, multiple times a day, over Moira Burton, who is the single worst character I've experienced in the last decade. I mean, my God.
She was terrible. She was terrible. So as far as Resident Evil Revelations 2 and my impressions of it, I didn't mind the enemy design so much. I mean, it wasn't like new and groundbreaking and super fantastic, but coming off of Resident Evil 6, where I just thought the enemy design was lazy in RE6. I mean, essentially you just went from each person's campaign and the only difference is the masks they wore, essentially. I didn't find that scary. It was just a bunch of humans, and then some of them transformed. So at least in this you were fighting mutated abomination things, and so that was at least sort of more of a throwback to the older REs, which I liked. I will agree though, Moira was insufferable. That has to be one of the worst written characters from a game I've played ever. I really liked Barry's return in this one. Even though he looks like a completely different character, he was actually probably my favorite character in the game. I mean, he's overall a solid guy. You can tell he's got a good heart. Even to me, he sounds similar to classic RE1 Barry. I'm not talking like remake Barry. I'm talking like the original Resident Evil 1 Barry. Like just his vocal pattern and stuff. And so it was familiar, like drummed up something nostalgic in me. I was like, oh, hey, Barry. I automatically took a liking to him. I will say that the biggest problem Resident Evil Revelations 2 had for me is that you can tell that in certain parts of the game, they tried to take it back, like you said, to more of a horror-ish type game, and that's what people were praising it for. The problem is I don't think you can have a convincing horror game that's scary in any way when your cast is written like they're a bunch of high schoolers. Like inappropriate, out-of-place humor and like bantering, inappropriate and just not even like tasteful or convincing swearing, especially Moira. Oh my gosh. I mean, so many out of place and awkward F-bombs. I mean, the F word doesn't bother me at all. But the amount of excess in her use of it and her weird little, like, sayings that she would make, and for the sake of keeping this video age appropriate for everyone, I won't, start dropping F-bombs.
Moist barrel of Fs.
Yeah.
Was one of them.
And that's only one of them. I think it's way more creative than that. And it's like, I really felt like, I don't know what they were trying to do there. I mean, were they trying to make her like, I don't know, like hip or cool with the younger crowd? I mean, I'm not super old. I found that repulsive. I mean, it was so out of place in what is supposed to be like a horror game. I mean, I don't know. It was completely
Okay,
immersion
so
breaking.
we need to, because we're both going on wild tangents here about the characters, but what we really should do is focus on the gameplay.
Yeah.
And I do know a lot of people love the gameplay. And however, I got one major gripe, and I brought this up in a few other locations, and it seems to be I'm the only one that took a massive problem with this. But one is the balance in the game to me doesn't make sense.
Like, how do you mean?
Claire's loadout is significantly less so than Barry's.
And her enemies are harder.
And her enemy types are more aggressive. There's more variance.
They're faster.
And, I mean, yes, Barry has the ones that kind of, dance around. But the majority of his basic enemies are the really slow-moving zombies, a lot of them on the ground. And especially going off Claire, who is really ammo deficient, they are a lot more stingent on Claire's ammo, or at least it feels like it. And having the enemies that are more aggressive, more faster, and can do more damage, it feels like. And then to shift over to Barry, who's got such a massive loadout right out the gate, and then such weaker enemies. The entire time I was playing through, it felt like I should have been playing Barry first with a lead into Claire's segments.
Yeah, I can get that.
Because of how the balance was set up. And apparently, it just seemed like I was the only one that had a real issue with it. Everyone else I talked to seemed to think like I was crazy and the balance was good. I don't know if it was just me.
It wasn't. No, I mean, it was noticeably odd that it was that way, that they gave Barry like this ridiculous loadout of super powerful weapons when his enemies were slower and less threatening. But overall, the game was easy enough to where, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I never really felt challenged in Claire's. I mean, granted, we didn't ramp it up to the highest difficulty setting or anything. But so in our experience, at least, I didn't think it broke anything, but it was just sort of like a WTF kind of, why would they make this choice? I mean, the most criminal thing in my mind about this game is how it is critically and mechanically dependent on a co-op type situation where you're never alone. You're always with another person. But there's no campaign co-op.
There is, but it's local only.
Granted. But, I mean, that's so limiting, though. I mean, why go from RE5, which is network co-op, and 6, which is network co-op, and then take this one, which is so critically centered around cooperation, and be like, nah, local only. Who local co-ops anymore? Not very many people do. I don't local co-op anymore. We share play co-op sometimes, but it's like, that's such a... I don't really feel like there's enough people that do that anymore that would really justify making your game that way only, and why online wouldn't even be an option. Because, I mean, I probably would have enjoyed the game more had you and I been able to play in tandem together.
One last story beat I want to talk about is I feel like the plot lines that they set up in RE5, and yes, I know some people don't like it, but specifically the stuff in Lost in Nightmares kind of came to fruition here, and I think it was really a disservice to that amazing DLC that was Lost in Nightmares and the revelations about the Wesker children, and specifically how it references Alex. And, I mean, there is some debate at the end of the game what's going on there. But I think to use Alex, which could have been such an amazing jumping off point for the main franchise going forward, and have her be a villain that goes forward with it, kind of was sacrificed for no gain with her kind of entrance and exit so quickly in the manner in which we had it. They could have prolonged that and made it much better. Instead, it was wasted on a game with Moira and with awkward Barry, who honestly to me would have been far better off as an original character, and you dumped the awful Moira storyline because their relationship is garbage. I mean, if you like it, I mean, more power to you. I thought it was awful. It only served to bring Barry down as a character, whereas if you had just given us an original character in Barry's slot, one, it wouldn't have felt like they de-aged someone and shoved like Barry into a role he doesn't belong in here, because it doesn't feel like Barry. I mean, he just de-aged. He has a different, voice actor. Everything about it to me would have felt better dropping Moira and having Barry be an original character. I mean, if I'm to be honest, I think it would have been better.
I agree with the dropping Moira. That would have been good for multiple reasons. I know we've gone on about how annoying Moira is a character. But I mean, just replacing her entirely would have probably benefited the game overall. Because I mean, she's just such a such a detractor from it, which is sad. As far as like the storyline of the game goes, I'm really not going to crap on the storyline. I mean, I do agree that, the end boss, the Alex Wesker, was just sort of like, here she is, now she's gone, and it's like you could have played that up more. I agree, especially because I mean, Wesker was a key villain for the entire series up until 5, and then even nods to him in 6 and the legacy that he left behind. And so to have this game where it's like, well, here's this other Wesker, but she appears and then dies in the same game, it was kind of like, oh, okay, that wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting a draw. But I mean, the way it ends sort of leads that she could continue on in sort of like a weird Liquid Snake sort of way, She lives on through the little girl now, or, I can't speak to the future. I don't know if they'll make a Revelations 3. They might, I don't know, whatever. We'll see what happens. Overall, the storyline, I don't really expect Resident Evil games anymore to have a story I give a crap about. I'm not going to lie. I mean, the last Resident Evil that had a good storyline to me was like 2. I mean, I didn't really care about the Nemesis storyline. I didn't care about the 4. I mean, the 4 storyline I wanted to care about, but it was just Leon's snappy, like, one-liners and trying to be an 80s action hero just turned me off to him, which was sad because I loved him in 2. He was my favorite. You were a Chris fan. I was a Leon fan. That was like, And I liked how they, in 6, sort of brought him back down to earth a little bit. But 6 was such an insufferable game that, it was sad. So, I mean, I just stopped really caring. I play Resident Evils now more for just the experience of playing a Resident Evil than interest in the storyline. So I wasn't expecting anything there. I mean, my expectations were low. So, and I mean, the storyline didn't really offer me anything that was like, oh, actually, I'm really surprised because that was good. I mean, for anyone out there who's going to play this game who does still enjoy the story, I really don't know what you'll think of Revelations 2. I mean, I don't really know what would be super positive about it, but then again,
Claire's back, and Claire's amazing.
Yeah, see, I like Claire. I always liked Claire. I'm surprised that Jill has gotten so much of the spotlight in the Resident Evil games, and Claire's just sort of been this side note that starred in 2, and then has been in the movies only, but not games. And so I like that they brought Claire back. And I mean, she's so overshadowed by She Who Not Be Named, and I feel like we're bringing her up way too much. She's so overshadowed, it's unfortunate, because I really wanted Claire to star more than she does. I mean, she's the driving vehicle for her chapters, but it really feels like she's overshadowed, and I really think that's unfortunate. So, I mean, overall, the game as far as play goes, mechanic-wise, it controls okay, kind of slow though. I would almost say it feels slow to me when I play it. Like how quickly. I mean, it does have the quick turn, but even moving 90 degrees feels like a real ordeal, especially when you're being chased by something. The controls don't seem to respond as fast as I'd like them to, and I don't know if that carries over to all platforms the game is available on. I played it on PS4 with Beth. So I don't know, maybe on PC, yeah, probably with a mouse, I imagine, to go a little bit better, but that I can't rate that as I hadn't played it yet. So overall, though, I mean, it's not the worst game I've played, but it's not a great game
with Resident Evil in the title.
No, absolutely not. Worse. It has probably my new least favorite character, but overall, as far as a Resident Evil goes, I would say it was probably middle of the road. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we haven't even talked about the best aspect of the game, which is the raid mode, and the raid mode is amazing. And I love it. I mean, it takes the gameplay of Revelations 1 and 2. There's better, more additions, the equipment, loadout, the levels. It's a fantastic experience and one that's really worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I don't understand why they went with the raid mode, but like the network raid mode, but no network co-op. It's just so weird to me. I mean, I know I've already been there.
The raid mode didn't even have network play until after the 4th chapter launched. At least I'm fairly sure that's how it worked. It may have changed, but I do remember that being how they originally pitched it. Was it would be patched after the 4th chapter released. But I mean, the raid mode is great. It was great in Revelations 1. It's great in Revelations 2. It's even better because now you have Wesker, you have Jill, you have Chris, you have Leon, you have Claire. If you want to use her, you have Moira. So you have a lot of returning favorite characters there, including, of course, Barry, to use and level up. And they reuse a lot of locations from Resident Evil 6, some from Revelations 1, some from Revelations 2. So you get a wide variety of environments too. So the gameplay is really good, the environments are really good. Overall, it's a great experience. If you have someone that you can play online with, co-op raid mode is a really fun experience as well. So, I mean, it's finally a game where you can play as Chris and Leon together and have it be a fun, enjoyable experience, unlike
6.
RE6.
Yeah.
So, overall, like I was really happy with it gameplay-wise outside of the balance issue, which I do have a significant issue with. But overall, if you're going for just gameplay, I'd say it's a solid 3.5 stars. I mean, I really did like it when I could get Moira to shut her goddamn mouth.
Yeah, see, I actually think I'm going to rate a game lower than you for once and say this is a 3-star game. And that's only because, I mean, again, it wasn't a terrible game by any means, but it was just, I know I said earlier that I don't expect much from a Resident Evil, but at this point, I expect them to just do something better with it. I really feel like it's sort of gone from a raging boil down to just like a low simmer, and they've just left it there. I don't really feel like they've done anything to make it better. It's just mediocrity seems to be the bar that the franchise has set for itself. And even though I like the Resident Evil Revelations games more than the last, or more than like 6, for example. I mean, I did really enjoy RE5. I'm with you on that. But it's like, I still feel like they could be so much more than they are. And again, that comes down to a lot of writing issues for me.
Yeah, I mean, in the story mode, the moment-to-moment gameplay, I mean, it would probably be down to a 2.5 or 3 because, you know, Moira's running commentary. But what I'm rating the game so highly for, though, is in the moment when you're fighting enemies, especially in the raid mode, it elevates it so much because to me there is nothing quite like a Resident Evil gameplay and pacing, and they do nail that and they amp it up with the raid mode. And that's the reason why I'm able to overlook it despite my hatred of the main campaign.
Yeah, see, I will always rate a game primarily on its campaign. And the reason for that being is, in my mind, and I know that a lot of people watching this could disagree with me, but when I pay a price for a game, that's for the campaign. A good multiplayer is a bonus. I will give props and hella praise to a game that gives good multiplayer and good extra content, but the experience of the game is solely based on the campaign. Like, I will never buy a game for multiplayer. Like, it's the same reason I never bought Titanfall. I didn't think Titanfall was that good at all anyway, but I will never buy a game for multiplayer. It's campaign always, and that's where my opinion will be based on. Multiplayer, take it or leave it. It adds to the game, takes away from the game, but that's not where my judgment goes. So, about raid mode, you know, it probably has some of the strongest content in the game in terms of the ability to play through those old characters like you were saying. But that doesn't make Resident Evil Revelations 2 better to me. It's just, it's a nice feature on a bad game. Or, you know, again, bad is kind of hard. On a mediocre game. Again, I just really want to see Resident Evil fall back to the quality that I feel like it used to have. And I may be a minority in that. I very well might be.
What I want is Resident Evil 4 1.0, because that's still the greatest trailer I've ever seen. And what I really want is Resident Evil 5, the storyline that they had in the art book with Chris going insane and slowly like losing himself. Those two like promises, or those two like pitches of a game, are probably the two greatest games that have never been made.
I could go on. You know, one of these days we should do for our viewers a Resident Evil retrospective. We should go back and really. If you guys want to
let us know, and we will. But join us next week because we will be covering Kirby and the Rainbow
Curse, I think it's called.
Sorry, I am terrible with names. That's the reason why I like simple numbering systems. Oh
yeah.
But we are going to be covering the Rainbow and the Cursed Canvas or something like that.
It's like Kirby and the Rainbow Curse. Anyway, our first Nintendo game, Wii U title that we're going to cover. So definitely tune in next week for that. So please, if you like the video, go ahead and thumbs up it. If you want to tell us what you thought about Resident Evil Revelations 2, or even discuss the franchise in general and where you think it's gone, please put something down in the comments. We check those comments and we'll, let you give you our feedback as well. Be sure to subscribe as we upload new videos every Sunday.
Take care.
Oh, well, you're not going to do the I'm Beth and I'm Tim thing?
They've heard it for the last 2 months. I think they know my name.
That's Beth, by the way. Her right there. And I'm Tim. Take care.
Bye.